In this video, I will talk about how to use transitions and animations in Svelte. Svelte has a powerful and expressive way of adding motion and effects to your components, using directives, functions, and more. This will help you create a more engaging website that will leave your 5 monthly users impressed instead of a website that makes you want to destroy your computer. By the end of the video, you'll be able to create a more smooth and engaging website. Let's finally get started with transitions. The transitions are applied whenever the components are mounted and destroyed. There are many built-in transitions in Svelte. Here I'm going to talk about a basic transition, fade. It can be used to create some subtle animation for your components. To use the transition, import it from the Svelte transition module. I have a conditionally rendered div here that will become visible when I click the button. In the div, I'm going to pass in the transition directive with the fade value. Now, if we check it out, we can see that the component is fading in and out. We can specify in and out directives instead of the transition directive. The in directive gets applied when the component is mounted, and the out directive gets applied when the component is removed. So the transition directive is just combining both of them. I will pass in fade for the in and slide for out. Now the component becomes visible with a fade and slides out. You can also pass in different parameters. For example, you can change the delay by specifying the delay. There is also the duration and an easing function. An easing function is just the built-in function to make your animation better. There is a whole list of built-in easing functions like bounce, elastic, cubic, and more. I'll link the documentation in the description. Another interesting transition is fly. It accepts all the parameters mentioned and also the X and Y positions. It animates between these positions. In animates from the position and out animates from the original position to the X and Y positions. X and Y positions are pixels by default, but they do support CSS values. Using this, you can build engaging transitions like these very easily. There's also the scale transition, which is pretty self-explanatory, and blur, which accepts more parameters. Another cool transition is the draw. You can use it on an SVG to be drawn onto the screen or make it drawn out of the screen, but do make sure that you're applying it on an element that has a getTotalLength method like a path or polyfills element. Next up is the crossfade transition. This transition basically sort of replaces the old element with the new element and vice versa. The crossfade function creates a pair of two transitions called send and receive. When an element is sent, it looks for another element to be received and creates a transition into that element. I'll put the link to all the transition in the description below. I will now talk about animations in Svelte. The main animation to look in Svelte is the flip, which stands for first, last, invert, play. It basically fills in animation for an element if there's any change in its position or anything like that. To see how it works, I have a to-do list here, and as you can see, there is no animation when I delete the to-do. It doesn't look good at all, but when I add the animate directive with the flip, there is a smooth animation for the element. You can also customize the animation by changing the duration, maybe adding a delay or the easing function. As you just saw, this is not only simple, but also very powerful. And if we were to use React instead, we would have opted for another framework of some sort. What we just saw is just the built-in stuff. You can make your own animation and transition. I'll put a link to learn more in the description below. I hope that everyone watching this video learned something new, and if you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.